Jujutsu Kaisen has officially wrapped up, which is pretty surreal. The direction taken the last 5 chapters was truly polarizing to say the least. Whether you dislike the ending, actually like it, or stand somewhere in the middle, I think there's valid arguments being made from all sides. I'm actually very satisfied with this chapter as a finale, even if I can't say the same about 267, 269, and 270. But I don't think they're bad chapters either now that we have the full picture. This one by itself, I feel, still gives us a lot worth discussing one last time. After Sukuna's defeat, the way things in the Jujutsu world have seemingly just gone back to normal in a lot of ways is something that surprised many. This chapter follows that through line, while at the same time subtly emphasizing what exactly has changed. In the last mission of the story, the main trio's tasked with capturing a cursed user that was stalking the couple we met last chapter. It's a pretty simple slice of life chapter for the most part, giving us one last cool moment from Nobara and Megumi in the process. But it goes from slice of life to full circle closure on the character arcs of Gojo, Yuji, and Sukuna real quick. The stalking curse user seems to be just a weird misunderstood guy who's aware of his mistakes by the looks of it. The way Gege transitions to a flashback feels a bit jarring at first, but before long it makes perfect sense. It's not just any flashback either. Going back one more time to the time skip before the Shinjuku showdown, we see a much anticipated conversation between Yuji and Gojo. A conversation that moves mountains if you ask me. Finally providing a real and powerful conclusion to Gojo's character, and bringing together all the themes related to strength like selfishness and loneliness to a close, in a way that I think is beautiful and provides a lot more context for Yuji's perspective and decision making towards the end against Sukuna. With it being over now, it's not a stretch to say that, in large part, Jujutsu Kaisen is about redefining the meaning of strength. This is what Gojo's conversation with Yuji is all about. It's been emphasized throughout the whole story that despite being the strongest of the modern age, Gojo struggled because of it. It's what didn't allow him to understand and ultimately save Geto, directly leading to his loneliness. And it's what forced him to rely on his selfishness, even when he was selfish for a dream that didn't include him. In the face of his potential demise, he recognizes that that type of strength is not sustainable. So, moving forward, beyond himself, he wants the strongest to mean something different. He doesn't know what that meaning will be, but he does know that it's not about an overwhelming sense of self, or being a monster. And he also knows that whatever the answer is, Yuji will be the one to figure it out. Gojo didn't believe he would lose, don't get it twisted. What I think he did firmly believe was that he still wouldn't be satisfied even if he beat Sukuna himself. It's not fake confidence if you're winning one way or the other. In his case, Gojo knew he preferred to win in the way that would realize the dream he's had since the beginning, to foster strong and intelligent allies. With Megumi possessed by Sukuna and Yuta chasing the ghost of the strongest, Gojo expected greatness from Yuji, a sentiment Yuji now carries forward, expecting to find the best in anyone, through their humanity. Through his empathy. That's how we flash back to the present. Yuji tells the stalking curse user that since he acknowledged he messed up, that's all that matters. He should take some time to reflect and then join the trio on their next mission. And Yuji tells him the exact same thing Gojo told him. Gege Akutami deserves his flowers because this moment on top of everything also manages to circle back to Yuji not being able to save Junpei. He wasn't able to give him a second chance, but he was able to give a second chance to someone else. Afterwards, Nobara asks Yuji what he did with the last finger, to which he replies that he just tossed it. Megumi and Nobara both aren't exactly thrilled to hear that, but he assures them that it's all good, and in a very surprising turn of events, Mahito and Sukuna are seen talking in the afterlife, or how Mahito would put it, the pathway souls walk on their way down the cycle. It's interesting because Mahito basically says that this version of himself is merely residue of his cursed technique, which can obviously tamper with souls, and he follows it up by saying that he meant to ask Sukuna something. Mahito suspected Sukuna lied to himself and everyone else. He calls back to when Sukuna said he was a cursed, unwanted little wretch, and says that all he wanted was revenge. Revenge against those who resented and persecuted him. Sukuna doesn't exactly deny it. He just says it's no different, that he lived the only way he knew how. But he corrects himself, almost like it's been so long that he had convinced himself he had no other choice back then. He says there were 2 paths, yet he couldn't help but fear his own curse would burn him like a sacrifice. Sukuna never deliberately opens up about these 2 paths, but we see 2 people, each representing a respective path. The right seems to stand a younger version of Ryomen, and to the left an unknown person. It's left to our interpretation, but I think it's heavily implied that this is either Kenjaku or Sukuna's mother. I'm a firm believer of the latter, but it all depends on how you interpret the two paths. The way I see it, Sukuna rejected the path of forgiving and not resenting his mother and the people who wronged him, to instead take the path of revenge with Yurume on his side. Now after death, Sukuna realizes that should there be a next time, perhaps it would be nice for him to walk a different path, and he takes Yurume and walks off with her, heading north to start anew. Mahito loses it. Looks like bro was asking questions without being prepared for an answer he wouldn't like. He tells Sukuna he's gone soft, to which Sukuna could only reply that of course, after all, he lost. And Mahito is left in the void. Just when we thought that we would probably not get to know anything else about Sukuna, we get this. I already enjoyed the way Sukuna was written, but this just elevates his character to new heights. Knowing Gojo wanted a new form of strength at the pinnacle, and that Yuji not only embodies that perfectly, but actually succeeded in defeating Sukuna and making him realize he was wrong, this moment now recontextualizes everything and wraps it all nicely with a bow. Towards the end, we see the JJK Zero gang, Hakari and Kirara, and the main trio one last time. Yuta's got his eyes on Maki, Hakari looks like he's still mad his fight with Yurume was off screen, and Yuji, Megumi, and Nobara look like we're back in season 1. Overall, just a heartwarming page like the last one of the chapter. In a parallel to the first page of the story, we see where Yuji plays Sukuna's last finger, the same place where the first one was found in the very first chapter, uncovered, in the same little box with the lid off that, although not officially translated, apparently reads something along the lines of against malevolence and vengeful threats. It's a protection spell that was on the box since the beginning. It was never strong enough to work against the Sukuna finger back then, and now it's just a charm. And that's all she wrote. We have officially reached the end of Jujutsu Kaisen. It's definitely bittersweet for many reasons. Before getting into my final thoughts, I just want to point out how good Sukuna's conclusion really is. Sukuna's remains are no longer cursed objects for his reincarnation, but talismans keeping Tengen's barriers up in Japan. From cursing humanity for ages in life to protecting them now from cursed spirits in death is just chef's kiss. It's why I think it being daytime is such a nice touch too. Gojo, Yuji, and Sukuna are all-time greats and by far the best written characters in the story. Overall, this ending, and well, Jujutsu Kaisen in general, is far from perfect. It's kind of unavoidable to feel that there were many missed opportunities and certain moments and interactions that were lacking when they would have gone a long way. I do think 271 as a finale by itself is quite amazing. It's the couple of chapters and their pacing leading up to this one that left a bad taste in many people's mouths. I'm of the mind that in a perfect world, JJK would probably be over 500 chapters with a Heian era flashback, another arc before Shibuya, a real conclusion to the merger plotline, the Hakari-Yurume fight, and just more time spent exploring the big three clans and the world of Jujutsu in general. Of course, it isn't a perfect world, but in my case, it would have at least felt perfect if instead of the last 5 chapters, there would have been 15 with Yuji and Megumi in a legit 2v1 against Sukuna somehow before Yuji closed the show. But it is what it is. Personally, 266, 268, and 271 still managed to be something special. The peaks of the finale if you ask me. In many ways it feels rushed, but Gege has always had a certain style writing this story where I'd argue too much was left up to the reader's interpretation. But that same style is what has made him so unpredictable, and why I've tried being patient before jumping the gun on thinking Gege fumbled this ending. Because honestly, that's far from the truth. To wrap things up, I think there's something to be said about the world of Jujutsu not really being all that shaken up, besides the change in hierarchy with the higher-ups gone and the big three clans pretty much done for. I understand now that when Yuji told Sukuna that it was time to put an end to this cycle of curses, he wasn't talking about sorcerers and cursed spirits. He was talking about Sukuna's cycle of being cursed and cursing in return. Yuji was able to put an end to that. However, Jujutsu sorcerers still have a job to do. I've said it before, without even considering a part 2, Jujutsu Kaisen is huge, so I wouldn't be surprised to see spin-offs and more light novels down the line. And if that's not the case, and this really is it, then it's been a pleasure, and I truly am grateful for this story and the characters in it. I'm just getting started with this channel, and I'm not done talking about JJK either. Though to be honest, it's only a couple of videos I've already started scripting, and I do want to let it rest, so I'm excited for what's next. Right now, I'm really enjoying Kagurabachi even though I'm still catching up, and I've recently gotten back into Chainsaw Man after dropping it in the beginning of part 2 so I could binge it later. I guess what I'm saying is stick around if you care to hear me talk about other pieces of fiction, since at some point I'll probably be getting into movies too, and anything that inspires me really. Thanks for watching, much love and take care. Peace.